Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com. Welcome to another super secret project video. I'd like to welcome my special guest, Mr. Kermit the Frog again. And what are we doing? We're shooting directly into the sunlight, and that's kind of a no-no. And I'm taking this to the most extreme possible to show you how to compensate for when there is really, really strong backlighting. What do? Do you stay in auto? Do you move to spot metering? Do you switch over into manual? So, and when I say manual, I mean exposure, manual exposure. How are we going to figure this out? Well, we know that shooting into the sun isn't ideal. They say never shoot into the sun, but that's all rules are meant to be broken, and that is one of them. I don't have a problem basically using the person's body to block out the sun, and that's something I would like to do here, but being that the sun isn't straight behind us right now, I'm going to show you some other things to see how we can still make this work. Now, this holds true when you're shooting, say, a concert, and there's a huge, strong light in the background. I like to line up the artist's body with the light. So I move around to get the light right behind his body or right behind his head and expose basically off of his face using manual exposure or spot metering because I don't want the light in the background throwing it off. So what's going to happen here, if this camera right now that's recording this, which is the D7000, if this was not set to manual exposure right now, it would be totally dark. I would be totally dark, Kermit would be totally dark, and the background would be exposing for the sun. But I've compensated by switching into manual to basically set my own settings. So let's go through this shoot as we shoot Kermit the Frog with a strong backlighting for Super Secret Project, and I'm going to show you how to compensate for the strong backlight. We'll be right back. All right, now we're back, and man, that sun is extremely bright. We're shooting directly into it. It's really, what's it, probably about 5 o'clock. The sun is really strong right now. Kermit, are you ready for this? Because what I want to do, I'm shooting with the Nikon D3S and 24 to 70, but this really, it doesn't matter what I'm shooting with. I'm just doing it to make the point of how we're going to compensate for this. Let's take the very first picture. I'm on matrix metering, which most of your cameras have, whether you're on a Sony, a Nikon, a Canon, an Olympus, a Pentax. If I forgot any, please let me know. You always do. We're going to be on matrix metering. I'm in aperture priority. I'm going to shoot at f4 because most lenses that you guys have, if you don't have a 2.8, do go to f4. And I'm going to get the sun in the picture just to see what is going to happen here. So here we go. Let's read what the settings are coming in at. Okay, the sun is shining in. It's saying 5,000th of a second at f4. So we're looking at that. I can't even see Kermit the Frog right now because the sun is overriding that. So really what's going on is that big fireball in the sky is affecting my exposure. That is something to keep in mind with everything you're shooting. If I was to use Kermit the Frog's body to block out the sun, then maybe I could get a better exposure. Or if you block out the lights in the background at a concert, maybe you'll get a better exposure with the musicians, but that's leaving it in aperture priority. What happens if we switch to spot metering? Do we want to go to spot metering? I want to try one more again on matrix metering. I'm going to shoot a little tighter and see what happens now that I won't have the sun in there. 12/50th of a second. He's still dark. Not as dark as before because now what happened when I zoomed in, the sun isn't in this frame. The light, the sensor in the camera isn't picking it up, so it's not going to read it as really, really bright, but it's still going to read the sky and everything like that. So let's go to spot metering and shoot that really wide shot again. I am spot metering right on Kermit's head, trying not to get too much, well, let's see, 6/40th of a second at f4. So spot metering changed everything up. You can see how much better it looks now that I use spot metering more so than when the sun was, when I was using matrix metering. So what does that tell you? If you switch to spot metering, you're going to meter directly for the subject and not get that really, really bright background. But know that your background's going to possibly blow out and you're not going to have a lot of detail because you're now exposing for this Kermit who's pretty much in shadow area. Now, how would you get out of auto? What would you do? Well, we know that when I took that first picture, well, actually, we know that from spot metering, this last picture, it was at 6/40th of a second at f4. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty close. So I'm going to switch the camera to manual. I'm going to go to 6/40th of a second at f4, and we know that was close. So what do we do to make Kermit brighter? Well, we're going to slow the shutter speed down to let more light in. So I'm going to slow the shutter speed down. I'm at 400th of a second at f4, and the sun is blaring right into the frame. But look at that. Kermit, even though there's a little bit of sun spilling over, he's exposed properly. He's not extremely dark. That's because we went into manual exposure and made our settings right, not metering for the sun, but metering for the subject. So as I shoot a tighter frame here, I want to get my composition right even doing this. See what I'm doing with composition, left to right, I'm trying to get both of the arms of the chair in there. See how much better Kermit looks now? If I was to open up even more, we'll go to 2/50th of a second, slow the shutter speed down a little bit. We'll see that the picture starts to get even brighter. So we'll figure out what works best, but this is better than shooting one, let's say at 4,000th of a second and seeing that Kermit is totally gone and you can't even see him. So let's go over what we just did here. I got out of auto and aperture priority and went into manual, but I used the settings that were closer with spot metering to give me a base starting point for where I should be photographing Kermit the Frog here. So I knew that 4,000ths of a second looking through the camera wouldn't look good. So start getting into the mindset that if your meter is thrown way off, that you know your picture is going to have a problem, don't even shoot it. Compensate for it right away. Something that I like to do right away is literally cut the exposure in half. If it says 4,000, I'll go to manual and shoot it 2,000th of a second. If that doesn't work when I look at the picture, I'll cut it in half again and go to 1,000th. Now you're going to start to get closer to a proper exposure, even though we have this really, really strong backlight. So that is what you can do. You get out of aperture priority, you even skip the whole spot metering thing and get into manual, and you can now expose for something that's extremely, extremely backlit. So if there's any questions, please let me know. Jared, or no, Fro at froknowsphoto.com. So I'm going to have a nice written up explanation of what I did here with the sample images. You're going to see all of that, and I hope that helps. Jared Poland, froknowsphoto.com. See ya.
All right, so backlighting video for the super secret project just ended, and now it's time to announce assignment number 2. And we're going to tie it in with backlighting. I would like you guys to take objects, anything, people, He-Man figures, Star Wars figures, cars, anything that deals with backlight. And I want you to work on switching into manual or spot metering to try and compensate for all of that light in the background and expose your subject properly. It's a cool thing to learn, because once you can understand that, say your subject is really little in the photo, but you have this vast blue sky and everything like that in the background, and you know, with the bright sun, and you don't want that. You want to expose for the person. This is going to be that experiment that's going to show you how to change it, how to change your exposures and things like that to get a properly exposed person or subject, in this case, for your photo. So backlighting is a tough thing to handle and deal with, but it forces you to become your own meter, for you to read the light yourself, see how to compensate for it, and then actually capture the image without too much, without your exposure being overly off or too far off, and have to try to bring it back in the raw file. So in part 2 of this video, which is going to come up a week later, you can click up in the corner to get to part 2 video when it is live, and you will be able to see a rundown. I'm going to go through each photo that was in this video, and then we're going to save it. We're going to bring back that raw file. Even the ones that are really far off, that are like 4 stops off, we're going to show you that the power of the raw is with you, and we're going to make it work. All right, so have fun with the assignment. Be sure to post it in the forum in the assignment number 2 section, and it will be great to see what you guys come up with, and hope you guys learn a lot. Jared Poland, froknowsphoto.com. See ya!